How did Kaizer Chiefs manage to beat Richards Bay despite the fact that they were one man down? Well, we're going to talk about that, starting with the inclusion of Mteto. You see, Mteto was sitting very deep, which allowed that guy, Yusuf Mart, to be further ahead in midfield. You see this thing happening over and over again. Mart is forward and Mteto is deep. But then to some people, you'd start asking questions. Where is the double pivot? Double pivot, Kokai. Well, I'm glad you asked, and I'm going to tell you. See, the importance of double pivot, we must start there, is because when Kaizer Chiefs are playing, they do not play one player, single pivot, but they play two defensive midfielders in front of the back line. And what that does, it gives them multiple options in midfield. So how did Kaizer Chiefs then say, let's have more options, but they then take Umar and push him forward? Well, as I said, I'm glad you asked, because if you look here, you will see that, hey, Mteto is not alone in that midfield. He's not single, but he has another person. So it's a double pivot. So he's there. Always has a pass, a person that he can pass in Refrosla. You see this happening over and over again. And this just does what I said earlier. Gives you option, not just for Mteto, but also when we're trying to play the ball in midfield. But on top of that, you will also notice that with this situation of having double pivot and then pushing Umar to play as a 10 alongside Umfana Luwaga Vilagaz, no, Wagaswaga Vilagaz, Wagashabalala, it also gives the Kaizer Chiefs a numerical advantage in midfield, because you see, Richards Bay are defending here and they are defending with the 5-3-2, and that means they have 3 people in midfield, and in defending with 3 people in midfield, Kaizer Chiefs says we're going to have 4, so that means we're outnumbering them. And at the same time, if you have Frosler in that position, he is in a much better position to basically play the ball into the box, but he can also shoot from that situation, can also do all the other good things that Frosler can do, and we'll see that later on in the video. But Mteto is not just here for vibes, for double pivots and box midfields and all of those fancy things. He was also there to do a proper shift as a covering midfielder, because whenever Frosler was out of position, as you can see here, guess who was covering him? Yep, you guessed it, Sbongiseni Mteto. But when Cross was also out of position, guess who was covering him? Yep, you guessed it, Mteto. And he was also just there to mop up whenever anything was going wrong. You have Mart misplacing a pass, he wins the ball back, Umfana Mteto. You have Umtu trying to shoot, the ball is out, and then Mart misplaces a pass, who's there? Ox is there to win the ball back. And you can also see here, we had the ball in defense, who's there to collect the second ball? Yep, you guessed it, Mteto. And he can now start the ball and go forward. And the other beautiful things, that was able to receive the ball and just dispose of people and start playing the ball forward, which was just beautiful to see, because this is one player that we've been worried about the fact that, hey, he might not be that comfortable on the ball, but he showed that, hey, I'm actually quite comfortable if I feel like it. So that was great. Now we have to move on to the second thing, but before we do, if you have not subscribed, please subscribe to the channel and like the video if you have not. Point number 2, we're going to look at this game being made for Ashley Dupree. Now, if you look at this picture, you see that Bradley Cross is wide, but at the same time, you see Pulemodi being wide. And the question you're asking yourself is, wait, why isn't Pulemodi actually moving in? Because we usually see this with Usirino. We see him inverting. But no, that's not what happened here. And the reason why this doesn't happen is because he's not going to invert into midfield, because if you see Cross being wide, what's going to happen is you are pulling that guy towards him. And if you are pulling that guy towards him, him being wide to pull a mode as well is going to pull someone else towards him. And that happening is you are basically messing up or messing with the back 5 of Richards Bay. And in doing so, you are now pulling another defender, which then creates space for that player, which is Shabalala. And when Shabalala has the ball, Allen is now going to want to close him down. So he goes across to close that space. But in closing that space, he's opening that space. And now we have Dupree shining, because now we said Dupree needs space to perform, and well, we've generated space for him, and now we can try and find him in those spaces, because he's going to be definitely making runs into that space. By the way, can you see? This is 52 seconds in, which clearly says that this was the plan. And this is not the only time that this thing happened, because you saw that in minutes that followed, Chiefs were trying to find that space as well. But on top of that, we were doing something sort of not similar on the right. So if you look here, you see Riff Rosler, but you see that there's a defender who's reluctant in marking him. The question is, why? Well, that's because there is someone else on the left, that left back Umabua, who's looking at Uduba, who's not even showing in this picture because he's giving Chiefs so much width. And the moment you do that, you have now created a huge space, because this guy is busy focusing on, if the ball goes to Uduba, I must be able to get him. So then what have we done? We've now allowed Uduba to be a person who's stretching the back five of Richards Bay, and in so doing, you are generating space between defenders, which, by the way, is something that coaches hate. They want a team to be compact, and this is not compact because there's space between their defenders. So Chiefs then were like, hey, we've created space, let's create more space. How do we do that? We do that by making these decoy runs. Remember what I said about Fosler earlier on, about him being in that situation, being in that position, and being able to play passes into the box. Well, this was his time to shine. But also to do that, you have to kind of cause havoc in midfield, in the box rather. So you have Umtusha Balala making a run and pulling a defender away. And now there's that huge space, which then allows Dupree to almost get a chance to jump and head that ball, but the defender was very well aware to do that. And we are not done that, because we kept on doing this thing. You see, Duba is wide. Once again, Frosler is inverted. And now look at those two guys who are in the box, in Uduba, not Uduba, in Umtusha Balala, no Dupree's. So they are there, and now they start just making runs, and they're just pulling the defense apart. Now what has happened? We've generated more space by making those runs, and if we're quick enough, we can exploit that and score goals. But in this game, in that case, it did not happen. Once again, let's create more space by making sure that Duba has space out wide. So he runs wide, so someone obviously must track him, and then leave space in the defensive unit of Richards Bay. And what do? We try to combine with the 1-2s, but we fail to do that. Now, let's look at the goal, because obviously this is leading to a goal. Because what's the point of talking about, hey, we're creating space, but we did not do jack squat with this? Because in the goal, you might look at it and say, it's just a set piece. But I want you to look at this. You see the space that is at the back of Khosi below the space. Yeah, it's done on purpose, because Kaizer Chiefs players have just said, let's bundle here. Let's all just be in one place so that we force Richards Bay to mark us all. But we know that we don't want to be here. We actually want to go back post and score. It was always the plan. Beautiful. We have a goal, it's 1-0. And you see this thing happening again with our misses. We play the ball on one side and then we switch it to the other side, giving him Simango misses. And once again, we try to play the ball over them, and we're unable to do that. But this time around, you also have the same situation where we've made a run wide, and you have left a huge space between the defenders of Richards Bay, and now we're able to just run in between them. And unfortunately, Bradley Cross also misses that opportunity. So, why have you not liked the video? Let's move to the third thing, which is dealing with the red card, because we decided to be Riff Rosler and say, hey, this is wrestling. I am Randy Orton. He kicked a man and he was sent off. So we sacrificed poor Pule Modi, and Dylan Solomons came in, and now we're playing this 4-4-1 situation. And by the way, this is like out of the coaching textbook, just playing a 4-4-1 after you lose someone. It's pretty much standard. So now we have that situation, we're playing a 4-4-1 rather, and we trust that, hey, there's Dupree, so we can play the ball to him all the time. But that was our shape of a 4-4-1 when we're defending, because, as I said, standard. But when we're attacking, we're like, nah, let's just now say, Mart, stay. We're going to play a 4 at the back, obviously, and we're going to have the 2 in midfield, which is Bongiseni Mthethwa and Mart, to make sure that we don't have spaces, and we're going to have the 3 up front. Now, the positioning of these guys is also very important. You see the person who's heading the ball, it's not Dupree, but it's Duba, because he's the one who has a slightly taller frame compared to the other 2. But then, Pelo, what is the whole point? What are you trying to say? Stop mumbling. So, we have Dupree on his either side, ready to run when the ball is flicked on. And then you have Umtu Shabalala behind him, ready to pick up the second ball. There's always a plan. Now, what happens is, we don't succeed here, but we're playing these long balls again to try and find him. This is another situation where we do the same thing. We play the ball long. Who's the target again? Utuba. And Utuba is trying to flick the ball. And in this case, it doesn't happen. But the second ball is then won by Usef Mart. And can I just appreciate this thing? Guys, how do you win the ball back, you're out of balance, and you're still finding Dupree. By the way, remember what I said earlier on about Dupree. He's the one who's usually the one who's the one who is ahead to run into the ball because of his pace, as I said earlier on. So even here, he's the one who's ahead of everyone else as we play the ball, and he just finds himself 1v1 with the keeper, and he finishes the game off, and the game is 2-0. Oh, was it? Because Nabi still thought, hey, let's do something else, because now I see that we are playing this 4-2-3 when we're going forward. But let me twist things up and just add a defender. And by the way, adding a defender does not necessarily mean you are about to defend. It just means, in this case anyways, Chiefs were now bringing on Titloko to basically have a back 5. But in having a back 5, you have 3 very good mid defenders, and that means now you can free Ukros to overlap and allow Solomons to overlap without thinking, hey, if I overlap, I'm basically leaving them at the back exposed. But if you are leaving people who are very good defensively at the back, who are just center backs, then you are more secure. So this was actually an offensive change and not a defensive change when they brought on Utitloko. And you can also see by the fact that Zwane also comes on to kind of add in midfield control and all of those things. So when this change happens, Chiefs were now playing this 5-3-1, a back 5, and the 3 of Mart, Zwane, and Mthethwa. And then up front it was still Dupree. That was the situation, and we're kind of holding it together. But then we screwed up. Damn it! So you see that Chiefs in the goal that they concede. Number one, there isn't enough pressure. I think between Usolomons, Ublom, Nosaile, they could have gotten to the guy much quicker, but they didn't. The cross goes in. But here, because people don't like Msimango, they want to scapegoat him. But if you look at Msimango, he's clearly looking at the guy in front of him, right? So his job is to stop the guy in front of him. And the ball is not going to the guy in front of him. Instead, it's going to Mbutuma, who is supposed to be marked by who? Utotli. And then Utotli, in this case, he loses his man, and you end up conceding a goal. Now, does this mean Utotli sucks and he must be benched? No. Just means this time around, he made a mistake, lost his man. These things happen, and we should just do better next time. But what did you make of the game? Have you subscribed? Do subscribe, share it with your friends, clip it, put it everywhere on social media, share it with your wife, yeah, said it, and your kids, yeah, said it, and your aunties, yes. Anyways, I do not know what I'm talking about now. Anyways, what did you think of the game? Let me know down on the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, remember, equals al pelumoy.